Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Vixen Voice. Today, we're having another girl chat. So, we're going to have a little bit of fun today, but this is actually a pretty serious topic as well. We're going to be talking about the difference between masculine and feminine energy, and also how you can balance and harness each in your lifetime. So, if you've heard me talk, you know this is one of my favorite topics. It was such an aha moment for me in my life when I was coached through this starting in 2019. So that was about 4 years ago. And when I looked back over my career, as we'll share today, being in male dominated industries, I noticed that sometimes I was naturally tapping into my feminine energy, but I didn't really know what I was doing, right? So now I have a greater awareness where I can use each to, its strengths, because everything has pros and cons. And so we're going to kind of dive in today. I think you'll enjoy. We have guests ranging from a spiritual healer to a national trial attorney. So we are going to be all over the place today. It'll be fun. So Marilyn, welcome back. So we have Marilyn Prebul, and she is the founder of Soul Support Healing. She's located in Orange County, California, but actually has clients across the country. We have Dawn Smith. So Dawn wears a lot of hats. Are you ready for this? She is the owner, managing partner, and head trial attorney of Smith Klein Smith. And this is not a little firm around your corner. They are actually a national firm fighting elder abuse. So really important topic, right? So we're going to chat about that. And of course, last but not least, we have my dear friend, Shelle Vernon, who is also the co-facilitator of my Vixen Masterminds. Very exciting. We have a new VIP version popping out. It's called the Jet Setter Mastermind. So we might chat about that. But anyway, Shelle is the founder of Milestone Development, where she does executive coaching. She is phenomenal with teams. In fact, she coaches my team because sometimes, you're just a little too close to the fire. So, I love having other coaches, even though I'm a coach myself. If you really think about it, a lot of times people are shocked. And, I'm curious, Shelle and Marilyn, when we get to you, if you hear this, they're like, but you're a coach. Why do you need a coach? Okay, when Tiger Woods was number one in the world, he had a coach, right? So the best in the world have coaches, and they have multiple coaches. And you're going to hear all the ladies that are showing up today. We want to be the best at what we do because we're passionate about bringing value to our clients. And so coaching is really important to all of us. So, as I mentioned, the idea of the masculine and feminine energy came into my awareness about 2019. So I'm kind of curious, like, when did each of you become aware that there were these two different types of energy that we all have, by the way? So Shelle, how about you?
For me, it would have been about the same time, 2018, 2019. And it was actually with a conversation with my male North American leader. And from that conversation, it really got me to reflecting on what he said and how he said it. And it was about creating more female leadership within the petrochemical industry. And the way that he verbalized it was, if we could create more women like you and put them in the pipeline for leadership. And that kind of got my attention. Like, at first I was kind of offended. Like, what do you mean like me? What does that mean? And then he went on to explain, basically, the gist of what he was saying was that my femininity, how I led with that, versus even the way that I dressed, the way that I spoke. And if I could help women understand that. And so that was really an enlightening conversation that really got me to thinking and helped me realize, wow, one, that I had come a long way from that, because I was very masculine driven before in my energy, and that I had come a long way. But secondly, just the concept.
Yeah. So I'm curious, did you consciously come a long way? Or because, one thing I heard you say is at first when he said like you were taken a little aback. And like for those of us that grew up in male dominated industries, like, was that a sensitivity that you were taken back when he was actually giving you a compliment, right? So that's the first question. And then second, I'm curious if you actively work to enhance your feminine energy.
To the first question, I was taken aback because I hadn't realized the transformation fully myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coming up in very male dominated industries via the
Mm-hmm.
automobile industry and then into petrochemicals, my attire and even way of being, like my attire was dark blue, black, dark gray, crisp white blouse or what have you, right? A power suit, usually a pantsuit. It was nothing very feminine about it. And I actually had a female that I really admired, and she was like so different, right? She may wear leopard print, she may wear bright colors, and she just challenged me one day
Mm-hmm.
after many years of our friendship, and she said, "Why don't you just put a pop of color?" Right. And start like maybe with your shoes or start with your blouse or your bag. And that kind of started that journey. And then it just kind of, continued to snowball and morph. To your second question, I think it was more me working on me, becoming more self
Mm-hmm.
aware and growing myself as an individual, as a human. And I think that's what really led to me really tapping into the feminine energy more, is being more comfortable in my skin.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure if you're listening, you might be saying, "What the heck is feminine energy?" Hang on, we're gonna get there, okay? I promise. But Dawn, how about you? When did this awareness come to you? Because I know you and I have had this chat before.
So actually, I'm really embarrassed to admit it, but the first time I ever heard of the concept was listening to you, April. Like, I don't know, within the last 6 months.
My
So,
mission's working. Thank you.
and it was really interesting. I was driving home and I kind of had a hard day and I was battling all day. And I was
Mhm.
thinking about coming home and being with my husband. And I was just like, wow, I do go in just guns a blazing, like probably 8 out of 10 times, and he, reacts to that, right? Kind of prepares himself for it. But I just started thinking, I really need to just kind of just ease up a little bit, get in that right mindset before I walk in the door because it's just really not fair to him, right? I'm just battling all day. A lot of times I have to be really aggressive.
Mhm.
And just kind of thinking about it in that context really made me realize I needed to pay attention to it. But I will say, as a trial lawyer, I have to be very authentic, right? Like
Yeah.
I just have to be myself. So I feel like I use probably both energies to
Mhm.
my advantage, especially in the courtroom. And I feel like I always have, but I just really never was able to put I don't know, a pin in it, right? Like just this is what it is. So I feel with my relationship with my husband, I think this is kind of a very opening experience, like thinking about it in
Mhm.
that context. And I've really tried to use it more now with that relationship. And I think it's just being aware has helped for sure.
I love that. And thank you for being so, Dawn, this one thing when we interviewed just you and I loved your vulnerability and your humility and your sense of gratitude. Especially because I'm sure you are battling every day. So it's very easy to lose these things when you're in the trenches. But, I love what you shared because it does affect our interpersonal relationships. And also the reason I love having podcasts and being guests on podcasts is I always have aha moments moments during them too. And as you were talking, obviously you need charisma in the courtroom. At least if you're a good trial attorney, you have some, sense of charisma. And if you think about it, I think charismatic people are better at switching between their masculine and feminine. There's something inside of us that's intuitive and it just, happens. Because I can think back when I used both as well. I just didn't know what I was doing. So I love that concept and idea. And Marilyn, how about you?
Yeah, the first time I became aware of this was back in, I would say it's 2013 or
Mm-hmm.
2014. My teacher, Victor Barron, did a workshop called the Woman's Values Workshop. And it was really all about understanding more the different values being a woman in this energy in this lifetime. And what I learned through that in that first go around is I had been very much dominant in my masculine energy. So we all have this
Mm-hmm.
range, this spectrum of polarity, um, of masculine and feminine energy, as you all have been speaking about. And what I learned in that session, in that workshop, it was an awareness of how I had a belief around my masculine energy being something that I was striving and achieving.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a very independent woman and wanting to support myself. And that's a good thing to bring that into different areas, to bring that energy. But also, it was a detriment in other areas of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And how I saw that was how that manifested was in my relationships,
Mm-hmm.
and the pattern of relationships that I was attracting men who had more dominant feminine energy. And, that, again, there's no judgment, and we're not really talking about genders here so much, but my own personal experience. But what that wasn't really working for me, in that realm
Mm-hmm.
of my life to be leading in the dominant. And what that looked like was a pattern of relationships where I was in a caretaking type of role, and it just was not working out. It was like the same relationship was repeating,
Yeah.
but different people, right? So, it wasn't until maybe 2017, as I was further along in my training as a healer, that I really tapped in to the energy, the
Mm-hmm.
spiritual energy of my masculine and my feminine, and had the full experience of being in my feminine energy. And I think the breakthrough for me was in recognizing the power, that the strength, not so much power is not the right word, but the strength of the feminine energy. We naturally think of the masculine energy as being strong. And,
Mm-hmm.
that's why we lead into that energy. But the feminine energy is equally strong, but in a different way of
Yeah.
tapping into that. So,
Well, that leads me to, I'm so, well, I don't want to say surprised, but I find it interesting that there has been a socialization or a social campaign to lessen the feminine energy, right? As like the weaker. And when you think about it, we women can birth children. This is the penultimate like creativity that exists on earth, right? So like our power is so strong. And I actually like the word power because I love that book, Power versus Force, where force is you're trying to make something happen, whereas power is you're in your power, surrendering, trusting. So I like the term power from that sense. And so, what's interesting is we also live in a world where my friend Megan Smiley, who's a coach, she's in San Diego too. She talks about how this very linear, this analytical, linear, masculine thinking is really thought as the superior intellect in today's world, right? You know, if you think about science, even like legal arguments, when you're not bringing personality in, but the different things, it's very masculine energy. And in the workforce, that really became the predominant form of intelligence. Whereas when you think about intuition, creativity, the female forms of intelligence, these are extremely strong. And you don't have to be an artist to be creative. I mean, Dawn, I'm sure you're creative in court all the time. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually nothing that I thought was possible as being a lawyer. Like, I've just always kind of been creative, but being a trial lawyer and making arguments is probably, I mean, it's so creative, like really trying to figure out how to fit certain facts. And this sounds like so geeky,
I love
but
it.
how to try to figure out certain facts in a case and use those in your case, and trying to just kind of make those alignments so that they work for your client. It's my favorite thing. I love it so much. Like, just being able to go in and figure out how to make an argument, yeah, being able to tune into what the judge wants to hear, what needs to be said right then, what needs to be held back. And that kind of goes into whole masculine, feminine energy too, right? I mean, going into different areas of the country and dealing with different judges and different court personnel. I mean, you have to read the room, right? I mean, you really have to read the room, and you can get really far using certain type of energy. You really can. Sometimes you need to use, masculine. Sometimes you need to use feminine. But I think creativity is one of the biggest blessings I have with respect to what I do. I love it.
So I love that. So creativity is a very feminine energy, and so is communication, which is the other key skill, and relationship building, right? So when you think about the business world today, like being creative at problem solving, being able to communicate well, and building relationships are critical elements. So while it's kind of been like, the feminine energy is the weaker energy, it's actually predominantly what's working in the world today. And I like to say the world needs more feminine energy. Like, I'm not saying like this is not the feminist argument that we should get rid of all the men. I love men, right? Like, we need the men, we need the women. So, but it's like this balance and push pull between feminine and masculine energy. And I know Shelley has read these books, but my first introduction, I think it was actually 2012, not 2019, when I started thinking about this. But I was asked to read Alison Armstrong, Keys to the Kingdom. And this is really about the stages of male development, masculine. But in it, you learn how, as a woman, your energy can complement, right? And then another book she had, Keys to the Kingdom. The Queen's Code, which most of us in our Vixen Mastermind have read. And it significantly improved their relationships with their husbands, right? And so, Dawn, what you're talking about is a common issue, especially at our age, because we have so many responsibilities. We were talking about your daughter before hopping on here. You're running a law firm. I mean, heck, Shelley has 5 kids. Like, she has to worry about and run her business, right? And Marilyn has competing interests. And that's why I think it's so important for our generation at this time to say, okay, well, what's there for me? Let me start becoming more aware so I can show up better in all these areas of my life. But I can share with you, most women I start talking about feminine and masculine energy with, they're like, that's exactly what my husband complains about, that he, not complaining, but saying he misses that part of me, right? Because I bet if you think back, when I think back to my 18-year-old self, like, I had a very nice balance. I was probably too much feminine energy. I didn't get a whole lot done. Let's be honest. I don't know how the heck I got into Vanderbilt and Notre Dame. I will be honest, I'm a really good test taker. When you test and the 99.9% on every test, you get to go where you want, right? So I've always been about efficiency. I literally would study for the SAT and ACT every weekend, but I I wouldn't do my homework for classes, right? So I was like, oh, this makes more sense. I'm going to get further with this. Um, so it's really interesting. And, Dawn, I know you went back to school later. And Shelle, your story is so unique because weren't you 19 when you ended up in Houston as a single mom? Or,
I was,
yes.
yes, I
And
was.
so, when and I'd love for you to share some of your journey because the other kind of trend I'm seeing, and Marilyn, I think this will ring true to you, and actually Dawn, you as well, knowing your background, is a lot of women had to become the man of the household early, right? So Shelle was a single mom at 19. Marilyn, I know you were pretty much independent at age 16 of your parents, right? And Dawn, you shared some challenges growing up, so we kind of not just had to, I'm seeing so many women that didn't just have to grow up, but they basically had to become the man of the household because they had kids or they had situations where there was no one else. And, in coaching sessions, women have come to tears realizing this. Like, I didn't realize I did that, right? And how it's affected my life, which life is a journey. It's never too late to start peeling back the onion. So, Shelle, share with us how you think, the situation or your story like really probably affected your masculine and feminine energy.
I would say that it definitely impacted the way that I interacted, not only with males and females, but
Mhm.
more specifically, like my children. I was having a conversation with one of my children, number two, the other day, and I was saying something to the effect of, I don't want whatever is going on to impact your relationship with your sister, right? And April, you'll love this, right? He says, I'm not ready to have this conversation. Matter of fact, I'm not. And this is a boundary for me, right?
Love
I
it.
was like, what? I mean, I had to respect it, right? However,
Yes.
he also made a comment. He said, when we were little, you would do this same thing. You would tell us, right? Like we had
Mhm.
no choice, no option, right? Now, I don't know how I feel really about gentle parenting, and that's a whole nother issue.
Right.
However, that comment stuck with me because what I realized in that moment, like it was a flash, I was parenting very much so from a masculine perspective,
Mhm.
being a single parent, right? I didn't allow very much at the time of the feminine to come in. And it
Mhm.
is, and it was just in an instant that thought crossed my mind. And he was absolutely
Mhm.
right. It was like boom, boom, boom. I ran my household like, it was kind of like the military, to be quite honest. It was, you're going to do this, and this. I've thought 3 to 5 years out already, and this is the track that you're going to go on, and this is what I need you to do. And, you know, very much so parenting from that perspective. And it was
Mhm.
very masculine driven, right? And that's not to
Yeah.
say that there was no femininity in there at all, because my children are like magnets to me. I have my eldest is about to be 32 and he will still come sit in my lap, right? So there was that loving environment.
Yeah.
But I would say because I was income winner, breadwinner, I was
Mhm.
decision maker, I was disciplinarian, I was all things. It placed me in a place where I thought I had to lead or parent from that perspective. And I took that from home into business, into industry with me as
Yeah.
well.
Well, and when I hear you speak, what comes up for me is like you almost did it out of necessity. I mean, at some point, you're leading a household of six, you have a career. I know you went back to school at some point. Like, there's only so many hours in the day. And when that happens, is when we start getting very regimented, right? And in the
Right.
masculine energy, because I mean, there's only so much to do. You may not have had the time to like sit there and have, a Socratic method conversation with your children, asking the questions. I'm teasing, like, I mean, it's just not a necessity. And so That's why I always like to say, so Marilyn's in my small group coaching now, and we were talking, and another member was like still beating herself up for how she used to behave. And I was like, okay, that's the past. You live in the present. You have to let go of that past energy, right? So we all have these situations that have made us who we are today, and the ego's there for a purpose, right? It's there to protect us and help us through these times. But I feel like at our age, it's the time to start saying, okay, ego, I don't need you anymore. I understand my feminine. I understand my masculine. I understand there's more to life, right? But I love when you talk because I don't feel like you're still holding that against yourself. Like you just acknowledge, hey, here's what I did, here's what happened, and I'm this way now. And I just hope that for anyone listening, if you're still remembering the past and holding it against yourself, like give yourself grace and love. Like the past is the past, here's the present. And that happened for a reason so you could be the person you are today. So, let's move into this energy. So, I have a fun question for, oh, yes, please. I heard someone had a comment.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's an issue of safety or security,
Mm-hmm.
right? That when we don't have that, and you're having to do it alone, there's a default into that masculine energy because it's giving you that protection. At least that was the case for me. It was an attitude of, I can do it myself. I don't want to be vulnerable. I already feel vulnerable. So there's, and allowing that vulnerability feels unsafe, right? And so that's just something to, if you're experiencing that, to really go deeper and to begin that trust process, right? And that's where the feminine energy comes in as a strength, that you can trust your intuition, your your instincts around that, and without force or putting a wall up around yourself, allow for those things to enter your life.
I agree. And what's interesting is it can resurface. So we're talking about how this bubbled up for each of you early in your lives. And, same for, I mean, I was actually very, very feminine. Like I was a girly girl, but I also was a tomboy, right? Like I played, and then, I mean, I go into a law firm and like, yeah, the masculine energy starts coming out, which was interesting because I was hired for my law firm because I was very feminine, because I got the job over people who were law review, right? That should have gotten the job. So I knew it was that they wanted somebody more social, more able to, kind of be their face around town, right? Like I was very aware of that. But when you get in the environment, it still starts, there's such high expectations that you default to that masculine energy. But I mean, I saw this with my mom and dad. When I was growing up, my dad was very much the leader of the household. Now, my mom's very strong if you meet her, but if there was a problem, my dad solved it. And I just grew up having that security that, hey, dad can fix anything, right? And I think sometimes it hurt my mom because I'd be like, oh, dad's going to fix it. Like, and it actually hurt her. But my dad had a stroke a few years ago, right after having multiple discs replaced, and then they had to reverse where my mom had to become the leader of the family because for a time he needed that. And so I had this conversation with my parents recently, like, hey guys, there's two men living in the household right now. This is why you guys are arguing all the time. This is why this is going on. Like we have very open conversations. And I prayed to the Virgin Mary to put the feminine essence back in my mom's heart. And after I had this conversation with them, and she was like, yeah, I'm happy for him to take over, she called me and told me she had more joy than she had had in years, right? Because she didn't realize, because that safety and security was taken away, we women fill the void because look, we're going to get stuff done. We got mama bear energy. We can't let the balls drop, right? So this can really happen. I mean, you can have a shift in your relationship, your work situation, your kids could be challenging you and you step in with the masculine energy to fill it. So to Marilyn's point, how can we instead tap into that feminine, like surrendering, trusting your intuition, and things just, then you start attracting the right things to come in. So Dawn, I'd love to hear from you. Like, how do you, you said kind of in the last 6 months you've had this aha, even though you harness your masculine and your feminine, you just didn't put a name to it. So do you feel like you've lived more in one or the other, like in your personal life, over your lifetime?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, you guys are much farther along in this than I am. And I'm like kind of tearing up listening to you guys talk because, you know, that trauma early on in your life
Yeah.
really does kind of put those barriers up. And I would say it's just really within the last year, kind of going through this transformation with my firm and really
Mhm.
trying to kind of put myself out there, that I've learned kind of where I'm at and where I need to go. So I appreciate this conversation so much. I really do.
Well, I appreciate you being so open because look, there are many women listening going, "What the heck are you guys talking about? I've never heard of this in my life." And, you know, Shelley and I have talked about this before, because I had some Vixen happy hours when we first launched Vixen in Houston. And that's actually, well, Shelley and I met at a charity event and then she came to one. And that's actually how we met and became close. But I would start this conversation, and some women get really angry because they're so attached to their masculine energy and their ego, right? So, the fact that you're like, oh, wow, this is, open. And that's why I always joke this is a controversial topic because sometimes people are not ready to hear it or think about it, right? And that's totally fine too. Like, we're all on our own journey, but I just really, one of my important missions is the world needs more feminine energy, just like I say the world needs more love. So I think the more we can have these very real conversations about how we struggle with it. And I'm a single female right now. Like, I decided, I got out of a very serious relationship that I thought was my lifetime relationship. I sold a business, I moved to Nashville. I kind of started dating an ex for a while because it was easy. And I've always been someone who's just jumped relationship to relationship, right? And I was like, no, I want this time to me because I've never been single with this awareness of the masculine and feminine energy, right? Like, how can I give myself safety and security without a man in my life? And, for me, what it's done is deepen my relationship with God because that's my belief system. And that is the masculine energy and my safety net. And so it allows me to stay feminine by trusting, right? And surrendering. And so I think this time in my life happened on purpose to strengthen that relationship, which for me, I know Marilyn and Shelley, we've chatted lately. I'm very focused on surrendering because in the past I was very good at surrendering when shit hit the fan. Excuse my language, but I'd just be like, okay, I trust this is going to work out because I joke it's my easy pass life because everything works out for me. But I think it's because I've always been good at surrendering in the tough times and trusting. What I was not doing was surrendering my everyday life and the good times, right? And so this year I'm very focused on surrendering those. It is amazing. Like, literally the other day I was feeling badly because I was like, oh my gosh, I was supposed to get back to, this person who I like very much and she's interested in being a client. And, I've just been busy. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, she popped up on my calendar in front of my face as I was thinking that, right? Like, she had found it and I was just like, oh, okay. And then we had the conversation and it was perfect timing for the conversation. It's just weird how everything starts happening when it's supposed to happen when you surrender and trust. Now, of course, you can't, my joke is you can't sit on the sofa and eat bonbons and it's all going to come to you. Like, you have to do the work, you have to be active, you have to be doing. But what you release is control of the result, if that makes sense. And, Marilyn, I know you and I chat about surrendering, and in your spiritual practice, it's super important. So, do you have anything to add about surrendering? And then, Shelley, I saw you had a deep thought too. So, everybody hop in.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's great, April. I loved what you shared about using this time that you have being single,
Mm-hmm.
to deepen your connection
Yeah.
to God. And I think for everyone, it's, having a practice. And I'm not talking about religion here. I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about going within, looking within your heart, right? That it's there. You have that light. You have that inner knowing. Everyone, whether you're a man or a woman, we all have that connection. And to have a practice where you are in your own way speaking, talking,
Yeah.
having this relationship, and having the space to listen. If you are experiencing any anxiety about any situation, that's a clue. Okay, go inside, go into that state of prayer. And having a habit around that every day is really, really helpful. And I think also, with regard to a relationship, okay, because you were just talking about being single,
Yeah.
I felt to share that for anyone else who's out there, who's in a similar situation, to really think about what does that look like for you, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
write yourself a letter, a one-page letter. It could be bullet points. It could be what do you envision of that ideal complement to your feminine energy? Or if
Mm-hmm.
you're, a man, your masculine energy, what does that look like? And you in there you have that clarity, and allow that, feel that
Yeah.
this is here, it's already here, thank you. And then you can appreciate more that time with yourself. And the reality is we're never alone, right? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people will share in sessions that they're in a relationship, they're married, but they feel very alone,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's a big problem, in being able to even tap into your strength, as feminine or masculine energy, right? If you're feeling that sense of aloneness, well, the solution to that, and the truth, that's just a lie that we're of identity that we're telling ourselves. The truth is we're not alone. We
Mm-hmm.
have this divine wisdom and divine connection. And that knowing that comes from that connection, that's going to further empower everyone. And it brings, if you're feeling, like what my experience was not feeling safe, and it brings more of that sense, whatever you feel you might need more of,
Mm-hmm.
to fill your cup, connecting in with that, um, your connection to God within your heart, is going to bring more of that to you, and then
I,
further empower your energy. Yeah.
I was just
Go
going to
for it,
kind of
Dawn.
jump. I was just going to jump in there. I mean, I think what it comes down to is, we're all very strong women, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of leaning into that, regardless of what it is, whether or not it's, strength in a situation or femininity or vulnerability, right? Just leaning into exactly where you are at that moment and just kind of
Yes.
owning it. I just think that that's the most important thing we can all do, especially at so many different levels, to really just make an impact.
Mm-hmm.
Just being where you are and feeling who you are at that moment, and I think that's so important. That goes along with what you all have been saying, I think.
I love that. And then when you do that, you're present in the moment. And so you're more present for the people you're speaking to, you're more present in the conversation. And I feel that's where magic happens. Like life just becomes amazingly beautiful. I mean, the other day I had a client that I'd worked with, and then she just got a job, and we're not working together right now. And so I reached out to say, hey, how are you? And she was like, oh, great. This is going good. And she was like, how are you? And I was like, I'm awesome. And she's like, what's awesome? And I was like, everything. Like, I can't even break it down because it has nothing to do with what I'm accomplishing or what's happening in my day. It's just exactly what you talked about, Dawn, being present with like who you are and being grateful for that, and like the season of your life, whatever it is you're going through, and living. How many people don't actually live right now, like live life fully, right? It's really a problem across the globe, and I think we have to start living. So, Shelley, what are your wise thoughts with what we're talking about?
So as you all were speaking, I wanted to share for those listening in is that we tend to when we use the word strong, it brings certain images to our minds, right? And usually strong people are giving. And April, you know this because we've had this conversation where I had this aha moment a couple of months ago, is that I have a problem. No, I had a problem receiving, right?
Thank you.
And receiving is a
Yeah.
very feminine trait, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we are accustomed to being the boss and being in control, those are very giving situations or attributes, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
it sometimes hardens us to when someone wants to actually give to us, and we kind of naturally go, no, I can do it, I got that, no worries, I don't need your help, or thank you, but I got it, right? And so the last probably 4 or 5 months, I've really focused on receiving, but that's also a part of surrendering, right? Receiving is a part of
Mm-hmm.
surrendering. And so I wanted to share for those women listening in, it's okay to receive, right?
Yeah.
It is okay. That's something that I had to learn. I was in the shower. I told you, God whispers to me when I'm in the shower. And it was very clear, like, you know what your problem is? Your problem is I'm trying to give to you and you're blocking. You're blocking.
Yes.
You're not receiving. And at that moment I was just like, but
Oh
all
my
of my
gosh.
life I have been the giver, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've not allowed myself to receive. It's not that people have not tried to give to me. It was always, no, I got that, because I felt like if I received or I allowed you to help, notice I used the word allow, if I
Mm-hmm.
allowed that, then it was like I was giving you control over, right? And
Yeah.
I thought of all this because at those Vixen gatherings, the
Yes, I
word that
remember this.
the word that would throw women off was, it was two words. It was submission and it was
Mm-hmm.
surrender, right? Those
Yep.
two words. And if you cannot submit, understanding that that just means following someone who has a plan or a mission for you and your family, or you cannot surrender that
Mm-hmm.
control, surrender giving and accept receiving, allow receiving, then you're blocking your feminine energy,
Yeah.
thereby kind of blocking or shutting off a part of yourself. So those were the
Yeah.
thoughts that I had.
So I want to give you kudos first, not only because I had this aha, I think it was 2022, about the not receiving, and I'll share the meditation I would do daily that helped me with that, because if you're listening and you realize you have that problem too, hopefully it can help you. Um, but you also have started asking.
I have. I have.
So I want to give you, because Shelley coaches my, my team, because I wanted someone like coaching my team, helping put the procedures together and systems, like helping them to do it. Right. And then we were talking about it. I was like, well, can you estimate the cost? She was like, I'm not going to charge you, April. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like, this is your valuable time. And she goes, how about this? Why don't you take me on a vacation? And I was like, done. We're going for my birthday. Like, that's like the best solution ever. But like, the Shelley I met a year and a half ago would have never asked for that. So I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So I am going to share quickly my meditation because for me it was a powerful moment. I was doing spiritual work, and if you're listening and you don't use the term God, like for Marilyn and I, it's important to use that term, and I think Shelle as well because it has a sense of power does. But like maybe you're not there and you have a different belief system, totally good. Like when I first discovered this giving and receiving, I wasn't using the word God. I was doing spiritual work, that was not God based, which the work I do now is. And, I had this aha, beautiful moment where I was in a meditation and someone was a spiritual healer was guiding me through a meditation. And I saw that I was not receiving. And what I saw was that I was like blocking energy, right? So if you imagine, I'm sure we've all offered to do something for someone or really from our heart wanted to gift something to someone and they said no, right? If you think about how that feels, it doesn't feel good. Like my gut just clenched up thinking about it, right? Because what you're trying to give them love energy and they're just saying nope, don't need it, and pushing it back on you, right? And so somehow this just came to me. And so I had this meditation where during this meditation I saw where I was like, I'm blocking the flow of energy. And what I saw instead of me saying no was almost like hula hoops of energy, like all around me. And I saw the beauty of giving and receiving and how it's a whole process. And when energetically you're doing both become so much more powerful, right? So when I have that moment, I'll go back into that. If I'm kind of like, nope, I can do it. Nope, I can do it. Like I will, I actually go back to that meditation and just, it may take a bit, but when you get this concept, like I have chills all over my body. It's so beautiful when you tap into and understand how you can give this love energy to someone and you can receive it, right? So I think it's super
Absolutely.
powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, and another thing you can do is if it's this is new for you, is there's always look for those opportunities. Okay, someone holds
Yeah.
the door open for you. Someone says, "Oh, can I help you
Yeah.
carry this to your car?"
Yes.
Even if you don't need the help carrying it to your car, say yes.
Yeah.
Those little practices will just empower the receiving and it will feel better. And you'll notice that it's going to keep building. It will keep building the more that you say yes.
I agree. I love that. I actually was just talking to a friend of mine who did actually, Dawn, I need to connect you. She's in Waco, so I thought about you the other day. But she's in Dallas a lot because she used to have a design business in Dallas. So she's super unique. She was oh my gosh, I can't think, but she was a patent attorney in Silicon Valley. Like her dad helped build the space shuttle, so super, linear, analytical, masculine intelligence.
Yeah.
And at some point she walked away from that and went into design, and now she's an artist and she's just very good at logistics. And I was like, I'm moving the end of this month because she said art sales were down. I was like, hey, how about if you came up and helped me with my move and helped me get moved in and make sure everything's pretty, because this last move I never finished because I was just so busy, right? And it doesn't feel good. I like my house to be pretty and zen. I said, oh, well, I'll just hire you to come up at like a design project. And she goes, April, don't hire me. I'll just come stay with you for a week. Like you can coach me on my new business. I'll help you move in. And I haven't been to Nashville in 20 years. We'll go out and have fun. And when you say those small yeses, these huge yeses start showing up. And I guarantee that week is going to be super fun for my friend and I. I'm going to take the week off work. And, in the past, I wouldn't have allowed that energy to come into my life. And we both would have missed out on this beautiful experience. So, and Marilyn, you're so right. It starts with the little yeses, like, yes, thank you so much for your help. Or if someone compliments you, thank you so much. That's so hard for we women to just accept the compliment gracefully, right?
Even when it seems like something that is unwanted, like if you're
Yeah.
walking by the construction site and you're getting the whistles, or I've been, out jogging or something. And, if I used to get like, oh, I don't want that, that's so, that
Yeah.
offended me. But now I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to take it. Thank you. Doesn't mean I'm going to engage with you, but receive it as a compliment. Just, we all get that throughout
I love
at
it.
some point in our life. Yeah.
Well, I know we're getting tight on time here. I wanted to bring up one more topic because playfulness, fun, sensuality, these are also feminine traits, which is part of the reason the name of my company is the Vixen Gathering, and and we're on the Vixen Voice, because if you look it up, the female fox, a vixen, actually is more attractive than the male, which is not common in the animal species, and they attract in the male, right? So for me, it was a little bit cheeky where we could re-own our femininity and our sexuality along with everything else we're doing. Because another important spiritual concept for women is to stand in your dignity, right? So I'm not saying to be exploited in your sexuality, that's different. But, if we really own it for what it is for us, that's totally different. So I'd like to talk about the more playful side. And if you think about, real quickly, I want to get a couple of things out because I'm sure people are like, what the heck is feminine energy? We all have that moment where you just feel soft, where you don't have any tension in your body. And like, I'm looking at these beautiful three women, they're glowing right now. They're definitely in their feminine energy. And the funny thing is, if you read Alison Armstrong's books, you'll see this. Men see it before we do because it's part of the attraction DNA, right? They want to see their woman glowing, happy, soft, like that makes them feel like they're doing their job. So it's really interesting because men are intuitively smarter about this feminine and masculine energy than we women are in today's society because it's baked into their DNA. So it's really interesting. So, just kind of start tapping into closing your eyes, feeling your body, walk barefoot in your yard. Like grounding is super important. Like, you notice we all have our lipstick on today. I know that's stereotypical, but like it's whatever makes you feel feminine. Like one thing is, I hear people, we're going to be talking about dating on another panel episode in your 40s and 50s. And I hear the reason we're doing that is I have friends who are 40 something going, I'm never dating again. I'm just going to be single. Really? The rest of your life, you're just never like, this is mine. How did we get here? Right. So, I mean, me personally, I love dating because you know what I do before a date? I take a bubble bath. I light a candle, like I get myself pretty. Like that's my feminine energy time. Like it's self-care, self-love, like getting myself ready for that, right? So think about something like that maybe you have a not so great attitude about. How can you infuse joyfulness, play, femininity to make that moment magical for you? So I really want to talk about the more playful side of being feminine. And so, what I want to ask y'all is, when do you feel you're most feminine? And it might be when you're playful, it may be when you're being a mother, it might be when you're in the courtroom. Like there's really no wrong answer here. But I'd love to hear from each of you. When do you feel you're most feminine, number one? And number two, what color would you put to your femininity? So, Dawn, I'm going to ask you to go first if you're ready.
I'm born ready. That's
I love it.
so I think I don't know. I love singing in the car.
Oh, I love it.
Seems crazy, but I mean, I just have such great memories of like riding in the car with my daughter and my son, and kind of connecting on that like fun, joyful level where we're just
Yeah.
singing like Johnny Be Good. That song. My daughter and I were driving to a swim meet in Austin, just ripping that song so loud, and I know she'll always remember that. And every time that song comes on, I remember that. So I think that that's probably just being joyful. I think I'm the most feminine when I'm just joyful and just free.
I love
Oh,
it.
and
So,
then the
what color?
color,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. I would say like a cool blue, like a cool sky
Mm,
blue, I think.
very pretty. Love it. Shelley.
Oh, I would definitely say dancing. Um, but I like to kind of sing when I'm dancing. So the combination of singing and dancing is when I feel the most feminine and playful. And
Yeah.
color, I would say something like somewhere in the orangish red hue. Yeah,
Ooh,
That's
beautiful.
beautiful.
yeah.
I
That's
like that.
beautiful.
Like that color you're wearing. So pretty. Looks so pretty
Thank
on
you,
you.
thank you,
And
thank you.
Marilyn, how about you?
Yeah, the color is like a soft pink actually, and I
Mm,
feel that that comes out a lot when I'm doing the healing work. And
yeah.
you know, it will happen at during the course of the healing. Someone will say, I see like a pink a pink light. And energetically, I feel, and I've been told by other healers who I've worked with, that that's the light that they're perceiving as the energy. And, I feel like when I'm in that space, it's purely giving unconditional love, right? And holding
Mm-hmm.
that space. So when I'm in that state of holding unconditional love, I do feel that that's where my feminine energy, which is my strength, right now in this who I am, is really empowered to full maximum strength in that time. And playfully, gosh, you know, it's really, again, when I'm in a nurturing type of situation with my
Mm-hmm.
cats, and I have a cat who's got issues, so she was abused earlier on, and just
Mm-hmm.
rehabilitate, when I get to just see her trusting more and playing with her, and there's no fear there for her. Um, but definitely, in any type of fun things that I'm doing with my boyfriend, whether we're out exploring, I love to cook and have a lot of fun and play with that, trying new things. And that's really empowering for my feminine. So I look for opportunities to do that and stay in that space.
I love it. For me, this is what's interesting. Again, I'm going through this period of choosing to be single. And, before it was when I was with my significant other or when I was dating. And now for me, it's really time with my girlfriends. Like this time and space has allowed me to tap in just the like collaboration, helping each other out either in our personal life or professional life. Like it's just such an amazing feeling. Like I really love it. So I love that I've had this time to tap into that. And I feel like when I go into my next relationship, the relationship will be stronger for that. Because a feminine trait is being adaptable, and I'm probably a little too adaptable in relationships sometimes, to be honest. Like, even though I'm a strong woman, I am very traditional. And so I think that'll help me. I had recognized that I needed to stay like a little bit more solid in myself in relationships. So I think these relationships with my girlfriends, who I really love and I want to communicate with and see, will help that so much. And for me at this time in my life, my feminine color is magenta pink, but more on the pink side than the purple. So, like, just this vibrant, like, in your face, pink. That's what I love. So, ladies, thank you so much. I know we had some technical issues and we've been talking long, and everyone has a busy schedule. I would love to talk to you all for more hours, but we probably should wrap up. So, I'd like to ask, do you have a quick message as we exit for everyone listening? For me, I always just say the world needs a lot more love. And I'd like to challenge you, if you're listening, how can you show up in love today? And don't forget yourself when you think about being loving as well. So, Dawn, we'll kind of hop to you. What would you like to share?
I love that. Speaking of love, but I would say just kind of lean into who you are, right? Trust and
Mm-hmm.
believe that you are in the place that you are at the moment because of all of the things that you've gone through and the risks that you've taken and the fears that you've had. And just kind of accept that this is the right place right now, even if it's hard or even if it's great. And there will always be, that next journey. So just kind of lean into where you are and learn and grow from where you are.
I love it. Marilyn.
I would say, forgive yourself, right? Look back, in those situations where you may have, and I know I've had to do this a lot looking back. Well, I forgive myself. I see how I created those, I was a co-creator in those situations, to forgive yourself, right? And, to really, just, grow in that self-love. And like Dawn said, be where you are. And,
Mhm.
um, you know, it's it's all great. It's all learning, right? It's all learning and growth.
Well, and what's beautiful about what both you and Dawn said, so leaning into yourself and the now, and then you talking about forgiving yourself for the past, when you can get to that place, the now and the future is so exciting. Like you can't wait to see what's coming, right? And I think we all want more excitement in our lives. We want more joy and happiness. And so what both of you shared is so powerful. So thank you. So, Miss Shelley, I'm going to have you take us home.
I would say if we could all remember that we are all delicate souls and we all want to not only give love, but also
Mhm.
receive love. And it's that
Yes,
balance of giving and receiving. And so if we can remember that we are all delicate souls who want to give, but also receive love, I think we will all reach that state that you're talking about, April, of the world needs more love.
I love it. All right, everyone. So I'm sure you want more of our guests. They're amazing women. You can check out the show notes, how to get in touch with them, how to follow them on social. Dawn has her own podcast coming out in the next few months. So watch for that. And we'll be promoting it on our social when she launches. So super excited about that. You can go to the show notes. You just go to vixengathering.com/podcast. And what I recommend is you subscribe because if you do that, the show notes get sent to your inbox quite easy. So if you love today, we would love to hear from you. Let us know what you enjoyed about today, what you'd like to hear from, who you'd like to hear from again. You can connect with us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or this full episode will be posted on YouTube. So you can watch these beautiful ladies' faces as well. So I kind of like that. It's fun, but also you can listen to us on Apple. Have a beautiful day. We will talk to you soon and can't wait to hear all of your wins and how you're finding love and excitement.